On Sunday, April 15, 2012, Diego Everett and Maurice Skinner were shot and killed after they burglarized a residence located on Country Club Drive in Jacksonville, North Carolina. After investigation by the Jacksonville Police Department, reading the statements, reviewing all the evidence, it is clear that Everett's and Skinner's deaths were justified because of the actions of Everett and Skinner in burglarizing the residence and assaulting, robbing, and threatening to kill the occupants of the residence. On the morning of April 15, 2012, the District Attorney's Office was contacted by the Jacksonville Police Department in reference to 2 shooting deaths that occurred on Country Club Drive. I spoke with Chief Michael Unero, who's present today, and Lieutenant Jason Bettis of the Jacksonville Police Department on April 15, 2012. On April 15, 2012, Chief Unero, Lieutenant Bettis, and I agreed that the Jacksonville Police Department would undertake a thorough investigation of the facts leading to the deaths of Everett and Skinner. On April 24, 2012, I received the reports detailing the investigation from the lead investigator in this case, Detective David Brown of the Jacksonville Police Department. On April 25, 2012, I met Chief Unero, Deputy Chief Timothy Malfitano, and detectives of the Jacksonville Police Department about this investigation. On the morning of April 26, 2012, I met with Detective Brown and Detective Richard Kellum at the District Attorney's Office about this case. On the afternoon of April 26, just yesterday, I met again, 2 days ago, I met again with the Jacksonville Police Department about this case. The evidence shows that on April 15, 2012, a Camp Lejeune male Marine and a civilian male roommate resided at a residence on Country Club Drive. They are friends with another Camp Lejeune Marine. Now I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to give their names today. The way I'm going to describe it is Marine resident, civilian resident, and Marine guest. On April 15, 2012, the residents of Country Club Drive attended their Marine friend's son's birthday party. After the party, the residents of Country Club Drive and their Marine friend decided to go to Emerald Club, which is located on Emerald Isle. All 3 men first went to Country Club Drive, and they rode to the club in the same vehicle. Prior to going to the club, at least one of the 3 men withdrew money from an ATM. According to ATM records obtained by the Jacksonville Police Department, the withdrawal was made at 11:30 p.m. on April the 15th, 2012. JPD also reviewed a surveillance video from the club. All 3 men were seen at the club. I'm talking about the 2 Marines and the civilian. All 3 men were seen at the club until 1:06 a.m. At no time during the evening did any of these 3 men have contact with anyone who looked like either of the decedents, Everett or Skinner, involved in this case. According to GPS records, the 3 were in Swansboro around 1:20 a.m. and the police believe all 3 arrived at their Country Club Drive residence at approximately 1:40 a.m. According to the Marine resident, after he entered his residence, he noticed that his dogs were acting strange. He then noticed that the sliding glass door leading to the backyard deck had been damaged, consistent with a breaking and entering. He started walking towards the back of the residence, down the hallway. His 2 friends were still closer to the kitchen. As the Marine resident walked to the back, Maurice Skinner flashed the Marine with a flashlight, and then struck the Marine in the face with the butt of a pump shotgun. The pump-action shotgun was determined to belong to the Marine resident. Skinner came out of one of the bedrooms. Skinner was holding a shotgun. This shotgun belonged to the Marine resident, and he kept it underneath his bed. The shotgun was a Mossberg model 88 12-gauge shotgun. A shotgun sling was found by the Jacksonville Police Department, found protruding from under the Marine resident's bed in the master bedroom. The Jacksonville Police Department determined that a sliding glass back door, which led from the dining room to the backyard, had been forced open. A pry mark was observed on the metal track of the sliding glass door frame, consistent with a forced entry. The sliding glass door latch was torn from the door casing, consistent with a forcible breaking and entering. Skinner told the Marine to get on the floor. Everett came out of one of the bedrooms. The other two men, that being the civilian resident and the Marine guest, came to the hallway and were also ordered to get on the floor. Skinner demanded all three men's telephones and wallets. Skinner and Everett took their wallets. The three men did not have their cell phones on them at this time, since they had placed them down when they entered the residence. Skinner threatened to kill them. One of the decedents asked all three men if they had any children. One of the decedents told the other that you might have to kill all three of the men. Everett and Skinner told them repeatedly they were going to kill them. Skinner would place a shotgun on their heads and tell them he was going to shoot them. Skinner demanded duct tape and rope from the three men. Once the Marine residents realized that these men were going to possibly tie them up, the Marine resident believed that he and his friends were going to be killed. Throughout this ordeal, every time the Marine resident would raise his head up, Skinner would force him down by pushing the shotgun barrel against his face. Skinner and Everett asked him again, "Do you have any children?" At that time, Skinner said he would not shoot anyone with children, but would shoot the ones who did not. The Marine resident saw Skinner look away momentarily and realized this was his chance to act. The Marine resident grabbed for the shotgun, which of course was his own shotgun. He and Skinner started struggling for the weapon. They ended up in one of the bedrooms. Skinner yelled for help. Everett came into the room and struck the Marine resident repeatedly in the head and ear with a crowbar. The police found blood on the floor where the Marine resident said this occurred. The civilian resident was struck in the head, and he believed he initially blacked out. The Marine resident yelled for help. The other Marine came into the room. Everett immediately went after this Marine with a crowbar. The Marine resident and Skinner were on the floor. The Marine resident had Skinner in what he called a triangle hold, with his legs wrapped around his waist, trying to keep him off of him. Skinner said, "You are going to die now," and squeezed the trigger of the shotgun. The gun did not fire. Apparently, Skinner did not realize that while the Marine resident kept the shotgun loaded, he did not keep it pumped and chambered. You had to pump it first in order for it to fire. The Marine resident was able to kick Skinner and free the shotgun from Skinner's grip. Skinner came at the Marine resident, who was on the floor, and the Marine resident shot Skinner 2 times. The civilian resident was in the room. The Marine resident pushed him out of the way and went to the other side of the bed where Everett and his fellow Marine were struggling. Everett had something in his hand and was swinging it. The Marine resident shot Everett in the buttocks. The slug entered Everett's buttocks and exited his abdomen area, with a part of the slug being found in the floor by the Jacksonville Police Department. Everett turned around toward the Marine resident, appeared to still be a threat, and the Marine resident shot him in the right armpit area with the shotgun. The Marine resident was yelling for someone to call 911. Everett started crawling towards the bed. The Marine resident was not sure what was under the bed, but the Marine resident could see a black object under the bed that he thought might be a weapon. The other Marine struck Everett with a wine bottle, and Everett stopped moving. The police found a black flashlight under the bed. On April 15, 2012, at 1:55 a.m., officers of the Jacksonville Police Department arrived on scene. All 3 individuals had significant injuries, that being the Marine resident, the Marine guest, and the civilian resident. And all 3 were transported to Onslow Memorial Hospital for treatment. The Marine resident had scratches and bruises on his chest and back. His right ear was deeply cut and completely split open. He had a deep laceration to the back of his head and a laceration on his right chin. The civilian occupant's injuries required several staples. The civilian resident had a deep laceration to the top of his head and stippling from a shotgun being fired in the proximity of his right arm and hand. The Marine guest had a deep laceration to the top of his head. The Marine guest's wounds also required several staples. All the individuals had a significant amount of blood on their clothing. Crime scene investigators from the Jacksonville Police Department found blood on the steps of the carport, the kitchen, the dining room area, the hallway, and the bedrooms. Wadding and brass from what appeared to be consistent from a shotgun rounds were found near Everett and Skinner. Everett and Skinner were observed in a bedroom. Everett was found lying face down in front of the doorway with his head facing the bed. Remnants of a broken wine bottle were next to Everett. Skinner was lying to the left as you entered the room. Both Everett and Skinner were wearing gloves and dark clothing. 3 flashlights were found in the room, and the room was in complete disarray. Both individuals, that being Everett and Skinner, were deceased when law enforcement arrived. On April 17, 2012, an autopsy was performed on Skinner and Everett by Dr. Arcott at Onslow Memorial Hospital. The Jacksonville Police Department was present for the autopsies. I spoke by telephone with Dr. Arcott yesterday, April 26, 2012, about the autopsy results. Skinner suffered shotgun wounds to his left wrist, mid-abdomen, and his lower left side of his abdomen. The lungs, buckshot pellets were removed from Skinner. The cause of death was due to loss of blood due to shotgun wounds. Everett suffered shotgun wounds to his left buttock area and his right armpit and right chest wall. The wound did not enter his chest cavity, but he did suffer from lung contusion. There was an exit wound in the lower pelvic to mid-abdomen area of Everett that was consistent with the entrance wound located in the buttock area. This wound showed damages to the this wound caused damages to the major blood vessels. A shard of glass was found on Everett's left cheek. A shard of metal, consistent with a shotgun slug, was found in the abdomen wound. Holes in Everett's clothes were consistent with buckshot holes. The cause of death was due to loss of blood due to shotgun wounds. The shotgun was recovered at the scene. The shotgun had a significant amount of blood on the exterior of the shotgun. The shotgun was unloaded when seized by law enforcement. One of the decedents had $73.55 on his possession. The other had $88 on his possession. The occupants' wallets, that being the Marine resident, the Marine guest, and the civilian resident, their wallets and cell phones were found on the kitchen table as if they'd been placed there by someone. And they were found there by the Jacksonville Police Department. Both Everett and Skinner have significant criminal histories. The Marine resident, the Marine guest, the civilian resident have no criminal convictions. During the course of the investigation, the police learned that there were 2 separate motor vehicle break-ins committed the same night of this incident at nearby residence on Country Club Drive. A phone from one of those 2 break-ins, one of those 2 break-ins was recovered inside of the residence with Everett and Skinner. Also, there was property from the vehicle break-ins found in the bushes in residences across the street from the residence from where the Jacksonville Police Department prepared a diagram here. You can tell this is the location of the shooting. Of course, this is Country Club Drive. This is the location of the shooting. Have a purse recovered over here. We have location of the victim's car break-ins. Other items of property are found in the bushes across the street by the Jacksonville Police Department. The police have examined the phones of all 5 men, that being the cellular phones. They have found no connection, i.e., for example, common numbers called between the decedents and the 3 men involved in this case. At this time, there is no evidence obtained by the Jacksonville Police Department that demonstrates any prior relationship or contact between the occupants of the residence and the decedents. Based upon my review of the facts of this case, I have determined that and concur with the Jacksonville Police Department that the shootings of Diego Everett and Maurice Skinner were justified to protect the safety and lives of the three individuals inside the residence on the morning of April 15, 2012. Based upon my review of the facts of this case, the occupants of the residence were justified in using deadly force against both Everett and Skinner because the actions of Everett and Skinner caused the occupants to reasonably believe it necessary to use deadly force to protect their lives. The evidence shows that the occupants of the residence had a reasonable fear of imminent death or serious bodily harm to themselves and others, and that both Everett and Skinner had unlawfully and forcibly entered the residence of the occupants. This is based upon the threats made by these individuals. This is based upon the forcible entry of this residence without the permission and consent of the occupants. This is based upon the fact these individuals had a shotgun and threatened to kill these individuals. This is based upon the fact that they assaulted these individuals. Pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 14-51.2, the lawful occupant of a home is presumed to have held reasonable fear of imminent death or serious bodily injury to harm himself or another when using defensive force that is intended or likely to cause death or serious bodily harm to another if the person against whom the defensive force was used had unlawfully and forcibly entered a home and the person who uses defensive force knew or had reason to believe that an unlawful force and forcible entry or unlawful and forcible act was occurring or had occurred. Clearly, all these elements are met for 14-51.2. Furthermore, the general rules of self-defense and defense of others in North Carolina allow for the use of deadly force when the individual actually or honestly believed in the need to defend him or others from death or great bodily injury, and the individual's belief is reasonable in light of the circumstances they appear to him at the time. Clearly, both of these, self-defense and defense of habitation, that being the castle doctrine, would apply in this particular case. Clearly, the investigation shows in this case that the occupants were justified in using deadly force to protect themselves from death and serious bodily injury. The three occupants are fortunate they did not suffer even more serious injury or death. The actions of these three individuals in defending themselves may very well have saved their lives. These deaths of Skinner and Everett, although tragic for the decedent's families, are justified pursuant to the facts and circumstances of this investigation and the law of North Carolina. I appreciate the thorough investigation by the Jacksonville Police Department. The officers should be commended for their quick response to the scene and the professional manner in which they have handled this investigation. I also appreciate the assistance of the Naval Criminal Investigative Service in this case. I have worked with NCIS in many high-profile cases involving United States Marine Corps personnel through the years, and I appreciate the professionalism and dedication in this case. Are there any questions?
Sir, is there any indication to how Mr. Everett and Mr. Skinner got to Country Club Drive?
That is still being investigated by the Jacksonville Police Department. I have Chief Pinero who can address that.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, his investigation, you said good investigation, is it over with or not?
Jacksonville Police Department will continue to follow up on leads to determine whether or not there could have been other individuals involved in this.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
first, it was saying that there was no forcible.
There was forcible entry. There was. Ma'am, there was evidence of forcible entry.
Okay, with all of this stuff and this stuff.
Somebody had time to call 911. when all of this is going on.
Well, the occupants called 911.
Yeah, after the fact that they're dead. Where is everybody else when this is so-called happening?
Ma'am, they were inside the residence. They had been victimized by these individuals. They were still inside the residence. And during this, they called 911 after the shooting.
I have a
So-
question. Is it because they're Marines that most likely they'll get away with self-defense?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. It has nothing to do with who they are. It's because it's the law of North Carolina. Whether or not you agree with that law or not, whether or not you accept that law, it's up to you. It's the law in North Carolina that the right to defend themselves, and the right to defend themselves and their habitation pursuant to general statute.
So if that's the case, why aren't y'all releasing the Marines' names?
I've chosen not to.
But I have a statement. But y'all allowing people to slander their names just because they got a rap sheet don't mean nothing.
That's public record, ma'am.
Okay, but y'all allowing people to slander their names.
I'm not slandering their names.
I have a question.
People are slandering their names.
I can't control everyone. I'm not
Before the
slandering their names.
investigation was over, y'all already said they broke in the house before you even knew what was going on.
Ma'am, the evidence shows they broke into the house.
I have a question.
And placed their
Yes, ma'am.
wallets on the counter when they broke in the house.
It stated in the newspaper and in the news that they were shot by 2 Marines. So, but listening to you, I'm not understanding how they got shot by 2 Marines and 1 gun. So did 1 Marine give the gun to another Marine?
Ma'am,
And,
sometimes what you may read or see initially may not be accurate.
okay,
I
so
can
he
tell
was
you-
shot by 1 Marine? Both of
Yes,
them were shot
yes,
by
ma'am.
1?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And that's what they need to say instead of making it seem like it's this when it's not that. That's words from the Jacksonville Police Department, apparently.
Ma'am, I think the Jacksonville Police Department has been very quiet about this case during the pending investigation, frankly. Any other questions?
Is there any indication at all how, Mr. Skinner, Mr. Everett?
That's an open, that's still an open investigation because of the possibility of criminal charges. So we will continue to investigate that as long as we have leads.
Yeah, ma'am. Not aware.
Was there drugs involved?
Now that we have no evidence of any drugs being involved.
Did
ma'am.
y'all drug test people?
We have no drugs, evidence of any drugs.
Did y'all
involved.
drug test people?
No, ma'am. We have no evidence of any drugs being involved. The evidence shows that these individuals broke into the house. That's what the evidence shows. And that's clear. They broke into the house, and then these people, defending themselves, shot the intruders.